Captain Zixtel's mandibles twitched with barely contained amusement as his scout ship's sensors mapped the enormous fleet drifting in the void. 57 vessels, each nearly 2 kilometers long, hung motionless against the backdrop of distant stars. Their hulls were pocked with micrometeor impacts, and layers of space dust suggested centuries of abandonment. "Look at these primitive designs," he chittered to his crew, six-fingered hand gesturing at the holographic display. Nuclear propulsion systems, basic kinetic weapons arrays, and hull plating that wouldn't withstand a decent solar flare. Whoever built these relics barely understood basic spacefaring principles. Dr. Amanda Reynolds, the lone human xenorchaeologist aboard, kept her expression carefully neutral. As the Confederation's leading expert on defunct alien civilizations, she'd been specifically requested for this mission. But something about these ships made her skin crawl, in a way that had nothing to do with their apparent age. "Captain," she said, eyes fixed on her datapad, requesting permission to launch probe drones for closer analysis. "Granted, Doctor, though I doubt you'll find anything of value. These are clearly remnants of another failed species that didn't survive first contact with superior civilizations." The captain's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was their equivalent of a dismissive sniff. Amanda deployed 3 drones, watching as they approached the nearest vessel. The ship's hull bore strange markings beneath the cosmic debris, geometrical patterns that sparked something in her memory, though she couldn't quite place them. "Interesting," she muttered, adjusting the scan parameters. "The radiation signature from the nuclear drives. It's too uniform. Decay patterns should be more random after centuries of exposure." Her Arthosian assistant, Terry, peered over her shoulder with compound eyes. "Perhaps the entire fleet used identical reactors." "That's not it." Amanda frowned, typing rapidly. "It's as if the radiation was deliberately calibrated. But that would mean—" A priority message from the Confederation's High Council flashed across their screens, interrupting her analysis. The Council had reviewed their preliminary scans and declared the fleet salvage grade. Interesting enough to study, but not worth preserving. Research teams would be dispatched to strip anything useful before the ships were demolished. Captain Zixtel practically bounced with satisfaction. As expected, these vessels are clearly relics of an inferior civilization. The Council agrees they're worthless except for raw materials. Amanda bit her tongue. 6 years working with the Confederation had taught her when to stay quiet. Instead, she focused on the drone feeds, methodically documenting every detail. The ship's positioning bothered her. They weren't randomly scattered like abandoned vessels should be. They maintained perfect spatial relationships with each other, forming what any military strategist would recognize as a defensive formation. But it was the next discovery that made her blood run cold. "Captain," she called out, keeping her voice steady through sheer force of will. "I'm picking up active power signatures. Extremely faint, but present throughout the fleet." "Impossible." Zixtel dismissed. "Your instruments must be malfunctioning. These ships are dead hulks." "Respectfully, sir, I've triple-checked the readings." She sent the data to the main display. "There's energy flowing through these ships. It's deliberately minimized, barely above background radiation levels, but it's there, and it's maintaining their formation." The captain's mandibles stopped moving entirely, a sign of genuine surprise. "Are you suggesting—" "These ships aren't derelict," Amanda confirmed. "They're waiting." Before anyone could respond, new data streamed in from the drones. Beneath centuries of cosmic dust, beneath layers of primitive-looking hull plating, the scans had found something else, a perfect geometric pattern of quantum crystalline circuitry, more advanced than anything in the Confederation's current fleet. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. These weren't the remains of some failed civilization. They were a sleeping giant's camouflaged teeth. Dr. Jack Mitchell had seen enough classified military projects to know when someone was trying too hard to hide something. Standing in the primary cargo hold of what the Confederation had labeled Derelict 37, he traced his fingers over a series of scratches that, to anyone else, Might have looked like standard wear and tear. Found something interesting? Dr. Amanda Reynolds asked, climbing through the access hatch behind him. The ship's artificial gravity was offline, forcing them to use magnetic boots that clunked heavily against the deck plating. More than interesting, Jack replied, pulling out his ultraviolet scanner. Under the specialized light, the scratches transformed into a clear sequence. STS-247NA. This is a NASA serial number. Amanda's face paled. That's impossible. NASA was dissolved before humanity achieved FTL travel. Exactly. Jack's heart hammered in his chest as he documented the finding. This ship was built during the chemical rocket era, but that would mean that humanity had capabilities we never disclosed to the Confederation. Amanda's voice dropped to a whisper despite their secure comms. The question is, why? Their discussion was interrupted by the harsh clacking of Arthosian limbs. 3 Confederation researchers floated through the hatch, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under emergency lighting. Humans, the lead researcher announced, mandibles twitching with barely concealed disdain. The Council requires your preliminary reports, though I cannot imagine what insights your developing species might offer about clearly superior engineering. Jack bit back a smile. If they only knew what he just found. Of course, Chief Researcher Catal. We were just completing our survey. As the Arthosians began their own scans, Jack guided Amanda to a different section of the hold. Behind a seemingly solid bulkhead, his instruments detected a hidden compartment. It took 30 minutes of careful work to locate the manual release mechanism, precisely machined to look like a structural support. The panel slid open with a soft hiss of preserved atmosphere. Inside, protected behind crystalline panels that had kept out centuries of radiation, hung a pristine American flag. Holy shit, Amanda breathed, staring at the stars and stripes. This isn't just human technology. This is a ghost fleet, Jack finished, built in secret while we were supposedly struggling to reach Mars. He activated his neural implant, accessing historical records. Look at this, Project Guardian. It's buried so deep in classified files that even most government AIs can't access it. The files painted an astounding picture. In 2047, while the world watched humanity's publicized stumbles toward Mars colonization, a secret coalition of nations had launched their most ambitious project, a contingency fleet, hidden between the galaxy's spiral arms, ready to preserve human civilization if Earth ever faced extinction. The public space program was a cover, Amanda realized. All those publicized failures and setbacks were carefully orchestrated deceptions. Jack couldn't help but admire the audacity. Our ancestors built these ships with technology they shouldn't have had, hid them where no one would look, and then pretended to be centuries behind where they actually were. Their revelation was cut short by urgent calls from other survey teams. Similar discoveries were popping up across the fleet: English language markings, Chinese characters, Cyrillic script. Each ship contained fragments of evidence pointing to human origin, carefully preserved behind layers of seemingly primitive technology. The Confederation's reaction was immediate and dramatic. The High Council, which had only recently admitted humanity as a developing species, convened an emergency session. Accusations of deception flew. Demands for explanation mounted. In response, humanity's ambassadors maintained perfectly composed expressions and offered only the most diplomatic non-answers. Back on Derelict 37, Jack found one more surprise: a handwritten note preserved in a quantum-sealed container. The paper had barely aged, protected by technology far beyond what humanity was supposed to possess during that era. Asterisk to those who find this fleet. If you're reading this, either humanity has evolved enough to reclaim its guardians, or someone else has discovered our insurance policy. In either case, remember, appearances can be deceiving. Admiral Jessica Blackwood, Project Guardian, 2047 *. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just been hiding technology. They'd been hiding their entire strategic philosophy. Appear weak when strong, appear simple when complex, and always have a backup plan. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Lieutenant Tom Cooper had always been told he had engineer's hands, steady, precise, and unfortunately talented at accidentally pushing exactly the wrong button at exactly the wrong time. Standing in what appeared to be the maintenance bay of Derelict 37, those hands were currently frozen above what he'd thought was a simple diagnostic panel. The ship was waking up around him. "Cooper," Dr. Amanda Reynolds' voice crackled through his comm. "What did you do?" "I was trying to access the reactor housing," he managed, watching as dormant systems flickered to life. There was this pattern of ridges that looked like. His voice caught as holographic interfaces materialized throughout the bay, crisp English text hovering in perfect clarity. The ship's hull trembled, layers of centuries-old camouflage peeling away like a serpent shedding its skin. "All survey teams, evacuate immediately." The Confederation coordinator's panicked voice cut across all channels. Unknown technologies activating across multiple vessels. But Tom couldn't move. He stood transfixed as the primitive nuclear drive housing split apart, revealing something that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist. In a ship this old, the quantum vacuum thrusters were more advanced than anything humanity publicly possessed even now. "Holy Mother of God," he whispered, neural implant struggling to process the sensor data. They hid it. They hid everything. The entire fleet was transforming. What had appeared to be basic kinetic weapon mounts reconfigured into arrays that made modern military tech look like children's toys. Hull plates shifted, revealing layers of metamaterials that could bend both light and gravity. "Cooper." Amanda was at his side now, eyes wide. "We need to." She stopped mid-sentence as a new hologram materialized. A woman in a centuries-old military uniform, her presence so perfectly rendered she seemed alive. Identity confirmed. Human genetic markers detected. Initiating Wake Protocol Alpha. The hologram smiled. "Welcome, children of Earth. I am the Guardian interface, imprinted with the consciousness of Admiral Jessica Blackwood. You found us sooner than expected." Tom's neural implant pinged. The ship's systems were attempting to interface, using protocols that wouldn't be publicly developed for another 50 years. He accepted the connection, and information flooded his consciousness. The fleet had never been dead. It had been dreaming, running centuries-long simulations, learning and evolving while appearing dormant. The primitive exterior had been carefully crafted camouflage, designed to make any discovering civilization dismiss them as relics. "Your genetic profile indicates United States military service," the hologram continued. "Lieutenant Thomas Cooper, Confederation Engineering Corps. You've done well finding the activation sequence." "I didn't mean to," Tom started. "Yes, you did." The hologram's smile widened. "The sequence responds only to human intuition combined with engineering expertise, a deliberate safeguard." Through the bay's viewing ports, Tom could see the rest of the fleet awakening. What had been dull pitted hulls now gleamed with an inner light. The ships moved with impossible grace, maintaining their perfect formation, while systems centuries ahead of their time came online. "Attention all Confederation vessels," a new voice boomed across all frequencies. "This is Guardian Fleet Command. Please maintain your distance. These ships are the property of humanity's Combined Defense Initiative, circa 2047. We mean you no harm, but defensive protocols are now active." The Confederation ships scrambled to back away, their sensors undoubtedly overwhelming them with data about the fleet's true capabilities. The outdated nuclear signatures were gone, replaced by power readings that made their best warships look like industrial antiques. "Lieutenant Cooper," the hologram addressed him again. "As the first human to initiate Wake protocols, you have a choice. You can leave now with the other survey teams, or you can stay and help us complete the awakening sequence. Either way, humanity's secret is now revealed. The galaxy will know that while they watched us stumble into space, we were already among the stars. Tom looked at Amanda, saw the same mix of pride and awe in her eyes that he felt in his heart. Their ancestors hadn't just built ships. They'd built a legend, wrapped it in deliberately primitive camouflage, and hidden it in plain sight. "I'll stay," he said firmly. "It's time we showed the galaxy who we really are." The hologram nodded. And around them, humanity's greatest secret continued its awakening. 3 centuries of patience finally paying off. The personal log of Admiral Jessica Blackwood played across the holographic display, her face bearing the weight of secrets that would remain hidden for centuries. Project Guardian, entry final. Date: December 21, 2047. While the world celebrates humanity's first stumbling steps on Mars, we've just completed something far greater. This fleet, our insurance policy, represents everything we could be if we weren't so busy pretending to be less than we are. Dr. Amanda Reynolds watched the log beside Lieutenant Cooper in what they now knew was the fleet's command center, not the simple storage bay it had appeared to be. The room had transformed, revealing banks of quantum computers and crystalline memory cores that contained the sum of human knowledge and achievement. "Show me the Genesis Protocol," Cooper requested. The hologram of Admiral Blackwood smiled. Access granted. New displays materialized, showing vast chambers throughout the fleet filled with preserved genetic samples, not just humans, but Earth's entire biosphere. Seeds, embryos, and DNA sequences, all maintained in perfect stasis. "My God," Amanda breathed. "It's not just a defense fleet, it's an ark." The public space program was always a masterpiece of misdirection. Blackwood's recording continued. While NASA publicly struggled with rocket fuel calculations, we had already cracked gravitational manipulation. While the media reported on failed Mars rovers, we were mapping the spaces between galaxy arms to hide our true achievements. A new figure entered the command center, Dr. Jack Mitchell, his face flushed with excitement. "You need to see this. We found the cultural archives." They followed him to an adjacent chamber where the walls themselves were memory crystals, each one containing terabytes of human achievement, art, literature, music, scientific papers, philosophical treatises, everything that made humanity what it was, preserved against the possibility of extinction. "The Confederation thinks they know us," Jack said, running his hand along a crystal panel. "They see our public space program, our apparent technological progress, and they think they understand human capability. They have no idea what we achieved while playing weak." The hologram of Blackwood flickered, shifting to display the original construction of the fleet. They watched as massive ships were built in secret orbital facilities, their true nature hidden beneath layers of deliberate primitiveness. "We knew they were out there," Blackwood's voice continued. "We detected the first alien signals in 2039. Rather than announce ourselves, rather than rush proudly into a galaxy we didn't understand, we chose a different path. We would appear young, appear primitive, appear harmless, while preparing for every possible future." New data streamed across the displays. Contingency plans, tactical analyses, diplomatic scenarios. The fleet hadn't just been waiting. It had been thinking, running simulations, preparing for every conceivable first contact scenario. Each ship, Cooper read from a tactical display, carries enough firepower to level a continent, but the weapons are all defensive in nature, designed to protect, not to conquer. Because that's what this fleet really is, Amanda realized. It's not just about survival or military power. It's about preserving who we are, what we believe in. The technology is just a means to an end. A priority alert flashed across their screens. The Confederation Council was demanding immediate explanations. How had humanity hidden such technology? Why had they maintained the deception? What else were they concealing? But there was something else in the alerts. Fear, not of the fleet's weapons or its advanced technology, but of what it represented. A species that had the patience, the foresight, and the unity to create something like this in absolute secrecy. We built this fleet, Blackwood's final log entry played, not because we feared the galaxy, but because we respected it enough to enter it prepared. To our descendants who find this, remember that strength isn't about showing power. It's about knowing when to hide it, when to reveal it, and most importantly, why you have it in the first place. As if in response to her words, the fleet's systems continued their awakening sequence. Throughout the ships, centuries of human achievement stood ready to remind the galaxy of an ancient Earth saying, "Never judge a book by its cover," especially when that cover was deliberately designed to be judged. Major Robert "Bobby" Hayes had seen enough advanced weapon systems in his 20 years as a Confederation inspector to consider himself unshakable. Yet his hands trembled as he analyzed the readings from what he'd initially dismissed as a primitive kinetic cannon. "This isn't possible," he muttered, running the scan for the 4th time. "The power readings, they're off the charts." Lieutenant Cooper stood nearby, a knowing smile playing at his lips. "Want to see what it really does?" Bobby nodded, unable to form words. The outer casing of the weapon system melted away, revealing an architecture that defied his understanding. What had appeared to be a simple mass driver was actually a gravity lance, a weapon theorized by Confederation scientists, but never successfully built. "We call it the Aegis Array," Cooper explained, interfacing with the ship's systems through his neural link. "It doesn't just shoot projectiles, it creates localized singularities that can pierce the heart of a neutron star." "But the power requirements," Bobby's voice cracked. "You'd need 0-point energy taps." Cooper gestured to what had appeared to be the ship's primitive nuclear core. The housing dissolved, revealing a sphere of pure quantum probability, contained within fields that shouldn't exist for another century. "We had those figured out before we officially reached Mars." The implications hit Bobby like a physical blow. He'd spent the last 5 years writing condescending reports about humanity's developing military technology. Now he realized they'd been living in a technological palace while showing the galaxy a mud hut. The computational systems alone. He moved to what he'd thought was a basic navigational console. The holographic interfaces responded to his presence, displaying processing power that made Confederation quantum computers look like ancient calculators. "You could simulate entire galactic events with this." "That's exactly what we've been doing," Dr. Amanda Reynolds said, entering the weapons bay. "For 300 years, these ships have been running simulations, learning, evolving. The primitive exterior wasn't just camouflage, it was a cocoon." Bobby's neural implant pinged as the ship offered access to its tactical databases. He accepted, and his mind flooded with weapons specifications that shattered everything he thought he knew about military technology. The basic point defense systems were actually probability manipulation fields that could redirect incoming fire with perfect accuracy. The hull's primitive armor plating contained programmable matter that could adapt to any form of attack. Even the ship's waste recycling systems were centuries ahead of current Confederation technology. "Your entire species," Bobby struggled to process the revelation. "You've been sandbagging. Everything we've seen, everything we've judged you on, was exactly what we wanted you to see," Cooper confirmed. "Even now, what we're showing you is just the surface. There are systems aboard this ship that won't be revealed until humanity deems it necessary." A test firing sequence initiated in the neighboring weapons bay. Bobby watched through the observation window as what appeared to be a simple missile launch transformed into something beautiful and terrifying. The projectile split reality itself, creating a corridor of controlled space-time through which it could strike any target with perfect precision. The Confederation's threat assessment protocols. Bobby shook his head in disbelief. "They're all wrong. We've been categorizing you based on what we could detect, what we could understand. But you're so far beyond that." "That was the point," Amanda said softly. "Humanity learned long ago that true power isn't about showing strength. It's about choosing when to appear weak." The ship's systems continued their revelation, each new discovery making Bobby's previous reports seem more absurd. The primitive nuclear signatures had been deliberate broadcasts, masking power sources that could fuel entire civilizations. The basic communication arrays were actually quantum entanglement networks that could coordinate the entire fleet instantaneously across any distance. I need to update my report to the Council, Bobby finally managed, his professional demeanor cracking. Though I don't even know how to categorize what I'm seeing. Cooper smiled again, but this time there was steel behind it. Tell them the truth, Major. Tell them they haven't been observing humanity's development. They've been watching our performance. And the show is finally over. Ambassador Michael Sullivan took another sip of his coffee, the perfect picture of diplomatic calm as chaos erupted across the Confederation Council chamber. The massive holographic displays showed the Guardian fleet in all its revealed glory, its true capabilities now impossible to hide. The chamber, usually a model of advanced civilization's decorum, had devolved into something resembling a terrestrial zoo at feeding time. This is an outrage. The Arthosian High Commissioner's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. Humanity has deliberately deceived the Confederation about their technological capabilities. They should be immediately sanctioned. Sanctioned. The Meridian representative's crystalline form pulsed with amused light. We should be begging them for alliance agreements. Any species capable of this level of strategic deception. Which proves they cannot be trusted, interrupted the successful delegation. Michael maintained his serene expression, even as his neural implant filtered through the overlapping accusations and demands. He'd spent 15 years cultivating his image as the slightly bumbling representative of a young species, always apologizing for humanity's primitive understanding of galactic politics. The role had become almost comfortable. Now it was time for a different performance. Distinguished representatives, he said, his voice cutting through the chaos with practiced ease. Perhaps we should discuss what truly disturbs you. Is it the technology itself, or the fact that we kept it hidden so successfully? The chamber fell silent. Michael took another casual sip of coffee. Humanity has always believed in being prepared, he continued. The Guardian fleet represents not deception, but prudence. After all, how does a young species survive first contact with vastly superior civilizations? His smile turned sharp. Unless, of course, they make certain they aren't quite as inferior as they appear. The Confederation's first speaker, a towering Avalonian, leaned forward. You admit, then, to orchestrating this deception. I admit that humanity chose to enter galactic society carefully, with precautions in place. The same way you might wear armor when exploring unknown territory. Michael set down his coffee. The Guardian fleet was our insurance policy. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing more. The Arthosian High Commissioner practically vibrated with indignation. Those ships possess technology that violates dozens of sharing protocols. Protocols that apply to member species, Michael countered smoothly. And if you check the exact wording of our membership agreement, you'll find humanity never claimed to be sharing all of our technological capabilities. We simply shared what we felt appropriate at each stage of our relationship. The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Some species were already calculating the advantages of closer human alliance. Others were rapidly reassessing centuries of diplomatic assumptions. Michael's neural implant pinged with a priority message from Earth's combined government. Diplomatic PRO2 OMIGA active heed. Full DISTLOSURE at your discretion. He allowed himself a small smile. 3 centuries of careful positioning were about to pay off. Distinguished representatives, he said, standing for the first time in the session. Humanity would like to propose a new form of relationship with the Confederation. Not as a developing species requiring guidance, but as equals who chose to walk softly while carrying a big stick. You quote primitive Earth military doctrine at us. The successful delegation's translator barely managed the tone of disgust. I quote Theodore Roosevelt, yes. a leader who understood that true power lies not in showing strength, but in knowing when to reveal it. Michael's neural implant projected the full specifications of just one Guardian ship onto the chamber's displays. The data scroll lasted for 5 full minutes. By the first light, the Meridian representative whispered, "That's just one ship." "One ship," Michael confirmed, "out of 57. And the fleet, distinguished colleagues, is just one of humanity's insurance policies. The question now isn't about sanctions or deception. It's about how we move forward together, now that we can be completely honest with each other." The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just hidden a fleet. They'd hidden their entire civilization's true nature, choosing to enter galactic society not with a bang, but with careful, calculated patience. And now, finally, the mask could come off. Colonel Emily Winters watched from Confederation Defense Station Gamma as the Separatist fleet dropped out of FTL Drive. 12 warships, their hulls bearing the markings of the Radiant Dawn movement. Extremists who believed advanced technology should belong only to worthy species. "They're on an attack vector toward the Guardian fleet," her tactical officer reported. "Their weapons are hot." Emily's lips curved into a slight smile. After a week of political chaos following the fleet's revelation, someone was finally stupid enough to test humanity's capabilities. She opened a channel to Lieutenant Cooper aboard Derelict 37, now revealed as the GDS Vigilant. "Looks like we've got company, Tom. How's our old girl feeling?" "Ready to demonstrate some hospitality," Cooper replied, his voice carrying that peculiar mix of excitement and professional calm. Admiral Blackwood's combat protocols are elegant. The Separatist ships launched their first salvo, quantum-tipped warheads designed to tear through any known shield configuration. Emily's fingers tightened on her command chair as she watched them streak toward the ancient human fleet. The warheads never reached their targets. Space itself seemed to ripple as the Guardian fleet's defensive systems activated. The incoming weapons simply ceased to exist, caught in probability fields that reduced their chance of existence to zero. "By the void," Emily's Meridian tactical officer whispered. "They're not even raising shields." "No need," Cooper's voice held a note of pride. "The fleet's defensive grid doesn't react to threats. It prevents them from being possible in the first place." The Separatist commander, clearly thrown by the failed attack, switched tactics. 3 of their heaviest cruisers moved to surround the human vessels, charging what Emily recognized as matter annihilation cannons. "They're targeting civilian observation vessels," her tactical officer reported urgently, "using them as leverage." Emily opened her mouth to warn Cooper, but the Guardian fleet was already moving. Ships that had appeared dormant for centuries flowed like liquid metal, their formations shifting with impossible grace. As the Separatists fired, the human vessels simply stretched, their hull material redistributing to form protective barriers around every civilian ship in range. "Initiating containment protocols," Cooper announced calmly. "Please note that no loss of life is authorized under Admiral Blackwood's directives." The space around the Separatist fleet erupted with precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses, each one calibrated to disable specific systems while leaving life support intact. Ships that had been preparing to fire doomsday weapons suddenly found themselves drifting, their crews unharmed but completely powerless. "Hostile vessels contained," Cooper reported, initiating rescue operations for their crews. Emily watched in awe as the Guardian fleet demonstrated its true purpose. These weren't just warships. They were guardians in the truest sense. Rescue pods deployed with surgical precision, probability fields ensuring 100% survival rates as crews were evacuated from their disabled vessels. The station's sensors recorded everything. Weapons that could have destroyed planets being used instead to preserve life. Defensive systems that didn't just protect but prevented harm entirely, and technology that made the station's most advanced systems look primitive by comparison. "Colonel Winters," Cooper's voice carried a hint of amusement, You might want to warn the approaching Confederation reinforcements. They seem a bit nervous." Emily glanced at her tactical display. 3 Confederation battle groups had arrived at the edge of the system, no doubt expecting to find a massacre. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented: a fleet of ancient human ships efficiently and peacefully resolving what should have been a catastrophic battle. "All Confederation forces," she broadcast, "be advised that the situation is under control. The Guardian fleet has neutralized the threat with 0 casualties. Repeat, 0 casualties." The silence that followed was profound. Everyone watching understood what they'd just witnessed. Humanity hadn't just hidden advanced technology. They'd hidden an entirely different philosophy of warfare. The power to destroy had been turned entirely toward preservation. "Transmission from the Guardian fleet," her comm officer announced. Admiral Blackwood's hologram appeared on all channels, her centuries-old message finally finding its intended audience. "Let this serve as humanity's declaration to the galaxy. We hide our strength not out of fear, but out of respect for life itself. We build weapons not to destroy, but to preserve. Remember this day, not for the power we showed, but for the power we chose not to use." 2 weeks after the Separatist incident, Project Director James Marshall's final log played before the assembled Confederation Council. The ancient recording showed a man who had carried the weight of humanity's greatest secret, his eyes reflecting both wisdom and weariness. "To those who find this record, we detected the first alien transmissions in 2039. Not the simple signals everyone searched for, but detailed conversations between spacefaring civilizations. We learned of the Confederation, its power structures, its tendency to categorize and control developing species. And we made a choice." Ambassador Michael Sullivan stood before the council, watching their reactions. The chamber that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now hummed on every word from their past. "We could have announced ourselves," Marshall's hologram continued, "could have revealed our quantum manipulation technology, our gravity drives, our consciousness transfer capabilities. Instead, we chose to watch, to learn, and most importantly, to prepare." Lieutenant Cooper and Dr. Amanda Reynolds stood at attention nearby, their presence representing both the fleet's awakening and humanity's emergence from its long masquerade. Major Bobby Hayes, the Confederation's weapons inspector, sat among his superiors, his recent reports having forced a complete rewrite of the galaxy's security protocols. "The Guardian fleet was never meant to be a weapon," Marshall explained. "It was meant to be a lesson. In all our simulations of first contact, we discovered one constant: species that displayed their full capabilities immediately were either feared or exploited. But those who appeared gradually, who demonstrated wisdom alongside power, they became something more. They became teachers." The recording showed glimpses of Earth's hidden history. Massive underground facilities where public space programs served as cover for quantum research, orbital shipyards concealed behind holographic asteroids, and the launch of the Guardian fleet itself, 57 ships slipping away into the darkness between spiral arms. "We hid our strength," Marshall continued, "not out of fear, but out of hope. Hope that when the time came to reveal ourselves, the galaxy would be ready to understand the most important lesson humanity had learned. True civilization isn't measured by the power of its weapons, but by the wisdom with which it wields them." Colonel Emily Winters stepped forward, presenting the council with data crystals containing the fleet's complete technical specifications. The information would revolutionize a dozen fields of science, but that wasn't the real gift. The Confederation's methodology for categorizing civilizations, Michael addressed the council, has always focused on technological advancement. Today, we propose a new metric: the capacity for ethical progress. The Guardian fleet proves that having power isn't enough. Understanding when not to use it is what truly matters. The chamber erupted in discussion, but this time the tone was different. Species that had once competed for military superiority now faced questions about their own development. The Confederation's entire structure, built on technological hierarchies, began to shift towards something new. Our ancestors, Michael continued, didn't just hide their achievements. They created a test, not for humanity, but for the galaxy itself. Would you destroy what you didn't understand? Would you fear what you couldn't control? Or would you recognize that true power lies in the choice not to use it? Dr. Marshall's final words resonated through the chamber, to our descendants and to the galaxy. The fleet is your inheritance. Not the ships, not the technology, but the philosophy behind them. We appeared weak when we were strong, seemed primitive when we were advanced, and waited centuries to teach one simple truth. Evolution without wisdom is just another path to extinction. The council chambers fell silent as the recording ended. Humanity had hidden more than ships and technology. They had concealed an entire perspective on civilization itself, waiting for the right moment to share it. The Guardian fleet remains at the Confederation's disposal, Michael concluded, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. A reminder that every species, no matter how advanced, has something to learn. And sometimes, the best teachers are those who were wise enough to wait until the students were ready to understand. In the space above, the fleet that had been mocked as primitive now stood as a monument to patience, wisdom, and the long game of galactic civilization. Humanity had hidden their strength for centuries, not to deceive, but to illuminate a better path forward. And finally, the galaxy was ready to walk it.